for almost 25 years. I started my first business 3 days after high school and never looked back. I just kind of knew that entrepreneurship was the way to go. When I graduated high school, I was illiterate and I was so shy that I couldn't order a hamburger from McDonald's. But I knew that free enterprise is the fuel for freedom. All communities rise and fall with how much free enterprise they have. And it doesn't matter the political structure, the economic situation, it just is. So I knew that entrepreneurship was the way to go. And then about 20 years ago, I started really focusing on helping other businesses grow, change, and succeed. And that's kind of where the birth of Purple Monkey Garage happened. And then a few years ago, I met my wife here in St. Charles, and now here I live. So I'm here. I'm now a local resident. So glad to be here, and that's kind of the journey that we have. So today I do want to talk about what we can do during this time of inactivity. I know some businesses are doing okay. Some businesses are actually doing exceptionally well because of what's going on, but most businesses are not finding that the case. And what we need to remember is even if our businesses are doing well now, this is going to affect the customer base for a very, very long time. And I think that's something that really needs to emphasize to business owners and business leaders. There's a lot of talk about, can the stimulus package sustain payroll? Sure, yeah, I think it can. That's good. And I'm sure there's a lot of great resources that are available to you on how to get those loans and to get the immediate 10,000 payroll going. That's wonderful. But in addition to that, we need to understand that this is going to change and impact businesses and consumer mindset for at least a generation. And I'm seeing that the audio is cutting out. So let me see if there's anything in my end that I can do to kind of make this a better stream. Is everybody's sound cutting out?
Yeah, I think it is.
Oh, I couldn't hear you very well either.
Although when you just said that, it said you sound fine. You sound fine now.
That's weird. Huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Try.
Yeah.
Continuing on, see what happens.
Yeah. So just like coming out of the Great Depression, right? When we came out of the Great Depression, we had a situation where generations were changed. I remember my grandmother, she lived through the Great Depression. And even though she retired stable and wealthy and, had a home and an RV and, all that sort of luxury that we got to, she still canned food every fall. She still saved Ziploc baggies. She still reused twist ties. And it just was. And the longer this coronavirus shutdown happens, the more the consumer base is going to change. I've already talked to people that said, hey, you know what? If they say it's all clear, we're open for business, I'm not going to another Cardinal game for at least 2 years because I don't want to take the risk of that second wave or that third wave. I've talked to people who said, I'm installing UV lights into my business now, so as people walk through them, it can help sanitize against the viruses. So we're starting to see this stuff already, and it's only been a few weeks. If this is going to last a month or more, then what sort of changes are we going to see kind of moving forward? And that's really where we have to start asking ourselves first, is there going to be changes we need to make to our business in order to appeal once again to the customer base that has now changed? Are there things that you're going to have to do at your restaurant? Are there things that you're going to have to do at your chiropractic center to let the customer feel comfortable in purchasing again? We're also going to realize that from an economic standpoint, millions of people now realize what they thought was a safe, secure investment really wasn't. It's just the way it is. I was talking to a couple yesterday. They lost $250,000 last week. And this idea that, well, the market can recover and it's going to, right, it's going to, right. But they're 68 years old. They're not thinking, oh, well, 3 years from now, it took 25 years to come out of the Great Depression. It took at least 8 to 11 years to come out of the Great Recession. According to Harvard Business Review, we're just now coming out of it now. So it's not something that's going to pop back. And I'm sure everybody's aware of this, but I've been doing a lot of these lately, so I might as well just bring it up. When you see the market, if the market starts here and it takes a 30% dip, a 30% gain is not back to here. A 30% gain is here. So we need to realize that what we see as projections and recoveries are going to take time. So there's that element. That kind of takes us into when we come out of this, we're not going to be able to go through the process of, hey, I'm just going to advertise online and have a website and hope business comes my way. Even before this happened, we've been teaching a lot of local businesses the difference between marketing and advertising and how branding plays into this. And when you look at what a lot of businesses have done in the past 5, 7 to 10 years, we've taken most of the business out. We start something, and then we hope a click funnel, an ad campaign, the right social media post, and a website generates business for us. A lot of businesses have abandoned actual doing business in hopes of, hey, I just want something socially online that's going to drive business to me. And as we've seen even before the Corona crisis, click funnels are starting to fail. 70+% of millennials no longer click on sponsored content on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. 37% of Gen Zers are leaving social media. And even now, I just pulled up an article before we came on, talking about how social media advertising right now, because everybody's at home, is actually annoying the bejeebies out of people. And the response rates, the click funnel through rates are dropping through the floor. So we're going to need to realize that what we were hoping was just an easy button so we didn't have to do the work is now going to be even much harder once we get back open for business and we have to re-engage. So we want to spend a little time talking about those issues. So first, let's talk about whenever we work with a business, we do a 52-point inspection on that business, just like you would a vehicle. So let's talk about what a brand is. Because at the end of the day, that's what your company is. Your company is not the services you provide. It's not the products you make. It's the brand. And a brand is not a color scheme, logo, a name, or a mascot. If we were to ask 100 businesses or 100 just general population people, if I say the word Amazon, what do you think of? Nobody is going to say the river or the forest. They're all going to say free shipping, Prime, whatever. But it's going to be the website you're all familiar with. If you ask 100 people, if I say the word Apple, what comes to mind? You're going to get iPhone, computer, expensive, sleek. Maybe out of 100 people, you'll have 1 or 2 that actually say the fruit. Well, that's the power of a brand. And that's really what you're selling. If there's any business attorneys on here, they'll tell you that when you buy and sell a business, your attorney's going to spend 2 or 3 pages talking about the brand and about a paragraph talking about what it is that you actually do as a business. When companies buy other companies, sometimes you're buying assets, but a lot of the time you're buying the brand. So take this time of coronavirus downtime to really focus on your brand. Your brand at the end of the day is what you want people to think of when they think of you. Your brand needs to be the public expression of your company's beliefs. And everything else is then built on that brand. How much you price, what you do now during the virus, what you do after the virus, what sort of discounts you offer, all should be tied to and supporting that idea of a brand. I use this example a lot. How many people would use a 2-for-1 Groupon coupon for heart surgery? Nobody, because it doesn't match the brand. How do you know you have the best doctor in town? He's the most expensive doctor in town. Nobody ever said, doc, before I see you, do you mind if I see your report card from medical school? It's never happened. But people will brag about how they had the best doctor in town. Why, Jan? Well, because he was so expensive, Bill. So, and I'm not saying you have to be expensive. I'm just saying, notice how things have to support each other. Well, if you're a small business out there running specials and coupons, better support whatever the brand is trying to support. Otherwise, you have a tendency to spend a lot of money with very to little return. So when we look at businesses, one of the biggest problems we usually find is that there's no real brand support, development, and infrastructure. So use this time to kind of work on that. Additionally, when you look at your brand, the next thing that comes up is obviously marketing. And this one floors me. We have decided that branding, marketing, and advertising all seem to be the same thing. They're not. They're not. Advertising and marketing are not the same thing. I go to companies, large companies, huge companies, billion-dollar-a-year companies, and I'll say, okay, tell me what you're doing to market. And they say, well, we have this great Facebook campaign. No, that's advertising. What are you doing to market? Oh, well, we have this Instagram engagement process. No, that's advertising. What are you doing to market? And most businesses no longer market at all. As a matter of fact, that's part of the problem. Larger businesses are finding, it doesn't even matter how big you are. It matters, hey, you have to market. Because at the end of the day, if your company is the brand, which it is, then what is the job of that brand? To market the brand. See, we even think sometimes that marketing means that we somehow do specials or offers, or no, that's not marketing. What marketing is giving your target the experience of the brand. Now, this is really important because too often people think, well, that means I give them a sample of what I do, right? No, not at all. Matter of fact, that's rarely the case. If you look at, say, Facebook, right? Doing what I do, I get to go to a lot of events, and I cover the RNC and the DNC conventions, and Facebook is there. And Facebook, amongst this sea of 300,000 plus people, they put up these social little pods. They're these little places where you could walk into, shut the door. They're see-through, so nothing bad can happen in there without being seen. But it allows you to have a quiet conversation with 2 or 3 people based on this idea that Facebook's brand is, we want you to be social. The pod doesn't have a computer in it. You can't log onto your Facebook feed and see what's going on. It's not even internet connected. It's just, we want people to be social. That's our brand. Now, in the sea of 300,000 people, how do we give them that experience? Does that make sense? It's kind of like Apple. Apple wanted you to experience the Genius Bar. Notice how it wasn't just a store. It wasn't a checkout. No, we called it the Genius Bar. And we want you to experience the fact that our young millennial tech-savvy people know what they're doing, and you can trust them because our technology provides you this level of experience. Whether you're in the store or at home using it on your own, it's the experience that you get. So marketing is your number one job then as a business. Your brand is what your business is. Your number one job as a business is marketing. And this doesn't matter what industry you're in. If you're a chiropractor, your number one job is marketing. If you're a government contractor, your number one job is marketing. If you are a vet, your number one job is marketing. Because if you do your job great and marketing isn't working, do you get to stay open? Nope. If you're doing the accounting great and you're doing the HR great and you're doing everything else the business needs and you're doing it well, but you're not getting customers, you die. But if you do marketing well, the rest of that stuff can be sloppy, and the marketing, the revenue generated from marketing can even hire the experts you need to fix the back end problems. So marketing has to be the focus of what you're doing. So now, to two topics in, we know that your brand is the beliefs you want other people to think about when they think of you. Marketing is giving your target the experience of those beliefs. So then what's advertising? And this is really funny, and it's going to sound like I'm kicking myself in the foot here since I host a talk show, but advertising and marketing are different things. In radio, we make money on ads. But advertising, contrary to what the local radio ad guy wants you to believe, advertising is not to generate an ROI. It's not. Advertising and ROI should never be in the same conversation. I've actually had clients come to us and say, Josh, I would like to do a 6-month campaign on your show. What would be my expected ROI? And I'll fold up my little notebook and I'll say, no, we are not going to have this conversation. You're not ready for this because return on, yeah, great point. Your ROI or return on investment should never be tied to advertising. Let me give you an example all of you know. Let's say that on 5th Street, there's a Coca-Cola billboard. Do you really think that in Atlanta, Georgia, at a board meeting, there's an advertising conversation that's saying, hey, Bill, you know that ad we have on 5th Street in St. Charles, Missouri? How many cases of Coke have we sold because of that? What's our ROI? No, of course not. That's not the point of the ad. And you know this. You experience this day in and day out. Have you ever watched an ad and got to the end and thought, what's that ad even for? Right? Or have you ever seen a magazine? Matter of fact, I'll grab one. Hold on one second. You look at a magazine and you see something like this. What's this ad for? Right? Does it say call today, register, buy now, holiday special? No, it could be for anything. It happens to be for the hotel, but you're seeing a tub, you're seeing the ocean breeze. And you look at the bottom, way at the bottom, you have what the ad's actually for. But small businesses, the $150 million a year businesses or less, they tend to think that you advertise to generate an ROI. So they'll have call today, special, Labor Day special, now, 50% off, right? Because somebody told them you have to put a call to action in your ad. And then you have a lot of companies who spend money on advertising, scratch their head and go, wow, that was a waste. Well, it really wasn't. Advertising is wonderful and brilliant if you realize what advertising is supposed to be. Advertising is supposed to be just brand awareness. So now let's start putting this recipe together. You have your brand, which is what you want people to think based on your company's beliefs. You had advertising, which is getting the exposure of the brand, not the product or service, the brand. And then you have marketing, which is giving your target the experience of those beliefs. So let's just paint a contrasting sort of scenario. Let's say I make golf clubs and I have $5,000 to promote and grow my business. Option one is I buy a quarter-page ad in Golf Digest for 1 month. Now, is there any way for me to actually measure the ROI on that? No, because I can't tell who saw it, who didn't see it, what doctor's waiting rooms it was in. I can't measure that. In addition, I'm probably not going to sell based on that one. As a matter of fact, if I asked everybody on this call, name 10 ads you've seen in magazines recently, most of you wouldn't be able to do it. So now let's take that and use that comparison and say, now what else could I do with this $5,000? Let's say I go to, I don't know, Boogie's Country Club in St. Charles. And I say to the club manager, I want to pay you $500 so this Saturday, while people are waiting for their tee times, they can putt with my new putters. Now that's measurable because now I'm giving my target audience, golfers, the experience that I want them to have, and I can measure this and calculate the ROI. And I know if I'm just going to make up numbers. Let's say 200 golfers tried my putters, and maybe I gave away hats for great putts or something. And out of that, 50 people bought, and out of that, my profit is $2,000. Well, I know that all I have to do to make $1 million is to do that 500 times. Success isn't a maybe. It's not a, oh, I hope this works. No, it's as sure as gravity, because now I can calculate my ROI based on my marketing, and I can just determine what sort of amount of money I need to make based on what my marketing availability is. So that creates three distinct sort of portions when it comes to what we're supposed to be doing as business owners. And if we're thinking, well, how does that help us now that we're in this coronavirus? It helps a ton. It helps a ton, because even what you're putting out on the internet, does it match those three things? What you're talking about, how you're connecting with people. Are you calling them directly, or are you trying to post ads that get buzzed? You know, and realize that there's a difference. There's advertising and marketing. And what I find really funny is, have you ever noticed Facebook doesn't run ads on Facebook? So even they kind of know that there's this scale of diminishing return on social media advertising, whereas marketing has infinite possibilities. The problem, though, is it's where we need to be creative. And that's where it kind of clogs the pipe. Because a lot of small business owners either A, don't have a creative bone, so to speak, or B, they're so busy doing the product or service of whatever their business is that they can't go out there and market. So just to dive into that difference just a little bit, just think about it in your own life. When you advertise, do you like coming out of a movie theater and having that sheet of paper underneath your windshield? Do you like that? Has anybody, oh, Susan, I see you. I know you don't like it. Does anybody actually buy whatever that flyer is for? No. Now I have to do something with it. Do I recycle it? Does it sit on my floor for a week? Is Greta Thunberg going to be mad at me? Like, you have a lot of considerations. How many people, when you pull up to your house, love that swinging little thing on your door handle, right? How many people, with the exception of pizza and Chinese food, have purchased whatever that's for? You know, I was talking to a local guy here in St. Charles. He's hung over 5,000 door hangers. And I asked him, I said, how many sales have you gotten off of that in the past 2 years? And he said, none. And I said, are you seriously zero? He said, yep, absolutely none. But they tell me I have to do it, so out I go, and I've gotten 0 sales. So we have to realize, in advertising, we recognize the stuff that doesn't work on us. We really do. How many of you, when driving down the road and your song is over, and as soon as you hear the DJ lady speak, what does this finger do? It hits the seek button, either up or that way. And I was doing this presentation at Cadillac, and I said, you know, the number one worn out button on a used car is the seek button. It's either up or over. And these people at Cadillac just start laughing. And I'm like, why are you laughing? He goes, because that's absolutely true. That's the number one button we replace in used cars. So there's an element of, we know we don't like to be advertised to. Here's another one. If you have Pandora or Stitcher or any of those services on your phone while you're listening to music, how do those companies make money? And it's not advertising. It's not. This is, oh, I wish this room was live, because usually somebody's like, well, ads, they make money on the ads between the songs. No, if Pandora made money selling ads between the songs, they wouldn't make enough money in 1 month to even pay the royalties on the songs. The entire business of Pandora is not music, it's not podcasts, it's people hate advertising so much that they will pay us to avoid it. So they create a platform where you listen to music and then you're annoyed by the ads. So you'll pay the subscription price to avoid the ads. Think about that. That entire multi-billion-dollar business is a we hate ad feature. I remember I was given a presentation for a large national franchise, and they just spent a ton of money on this famous comedian to do their new national ad campaign. And the screen came down and they played new ad, and all the franchise owners, they're all clapping, yeah. And then the screen goes up and they're like, ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker, Josh Tolley. And I come on stage and I'm like, hey, everybody, hey. How many of you know what a DVR is? And all their hands go up because they're still excited, right? They're still excited about that ad they just spent $10 million on. Oh, yeah, I know what a DVR is. What's the selling point of a DVR? And then they're like, you skipped the, oh, crap. And I said, do you realize this represents, for the first time in history, people are willing to spend their own money to avoid your free ad? We hate advertising so much that I will spend money to avoid it. And we could go on and on, but the point is, as small businesses, we need to realize what's the point of advertising, and realize how many things do you purposely avoid, and why would we expect the customers not to avoid those same things? Just here recently, I was invited to an internet sales conference. And there were several hundred people whose businesses were sold online. And this was really, it surprised me, to be quite honest. I asked them in this room, hundreds and hundreds of people who just did online businesses. I said, how many of you in the past 6 months purchased something that you saw advertised online? 0 hands went up. I said, how many of you have ever ran online, had a pop-up come up on the screen and bought whatever that pop-up was? And then I said, how many of you have seen banner ads, you know, they annoy you on your favorite news websites, and bought whatever that banner ad was when you clicked and bought it? So there's just this reality of realizing maybe the advertising industry is its own industry. And knowing that advertising is there for the purpose of getting us to this point where we're brand aware, but not to create that actual marketing experience which drives sales and revenues. And because we focus on advertising, we spend more and more and more and more and more on advertising and get diminishing returns. And then we think, well, then I just have to spend even more. But the reality is, if we get to the point where we start saying, hey, I'm going to purposely develop my brand and develop real marketing, you can do some amazing things. And maybe if we have time, I'll give some examples. The other thing we'll be doing at this time is really working on our sales process. Now, again, that's not marketing, not advertising. Sales is its own thing. But yet again, just like advertising and marketing, we are hoping something else will do it for us. Study after study has been done, and it's shown us that people do not like to be sold to. If this was a live room and I said, how many of you are in sales, even the people who are professional salespeople kind of raise their hand like this. Because we don't like salespeople. If your daughter comes home and says, I'm dating a salesman, you're like, oh, sweetie, were there no politicians available? Like, it's crazy how much we hate salespeople. And it's to the point where if you go to Best Buy, they no longer have salespeople. They have team members. If you go to AT&T or Verizon, they have customer facilitators. If you go to Oracle, they have product demonstrators. At the end of the day, you're getting paid to sell me something, right? But we hate salespeople so much that we don't even want to call salespeople salespeople. But it also means that we don't like to be sold to. So we find ourselves in a position where the person doing the selling doesn't want to be in this conversation, and the person being sold to doesn't want to be in this conversation. Yet those are the very conversations that create a living for us, and neither party wants to be there. So we really have to get back to a sound sales process, a sound sales, I don't even want to say system or technique. I think part of the problem is this is what happens. Part of the problem is either A, we get no sort of sales process, sales training, sales system at all, and we just kind of wing it, or B, we go to one of these, like, I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus, but these cheesy sort of Instagram, YouTube sales guru guys, and all that really does is create very salespeople we then hate. So we either avoid these guys or do nothing, and that's a problem. So then yet again, we hope that some sort of app, internet, or marketing, or not marketing, but advertising, does the sales job for us. We need to get back to this place where we get back to what's called belief-based sales. When you get involved in a system of belief-based selling, you don't have to do the feel, felt, found, the assumption close, the always be closing, the needs assessments, the SWOT assessments. All of those things were actually designed based off of faulty sales techniques. And I know you know this. This is the crazy thing. I know you know this. If somebody were to come to any of you and say, well, I understand how you feel. I felt the same way, but let me tell you what I found. You instantly know they're selling to you. These little walls go up, and you are now in this struggle, right? And you know it. If I were to say to you, well, you drive a pretty hard bargain, but if I could make this price work for you today, what would stop you from taking it home, right? All of you would puke a little bit in your mouth and go, oh, God, I'm being sold to. But the reality is, those are the same things that we're hoping work for us when we need to go out and make money. So we need to spend this time, this next 30 days, really getting back to what's considered a belief-based sales process. I have sold tractors to people who live in apartments. I'm serious about that. And I've sold $10 gym memberships for $400 a month, all based on, if you find the right belief, there's no hesitancy, there's no objections. One of the biggest signs you're in a bad sales training is if they teach you to overcome objections and they tell you it takes 7 no's to get a yes. That right there is red flag, because you're not really learning how to connect to the beliefs of the customer. What you're trying to do is just arm wrestle them to a yes. And that was fine back in the 90s when nobody really talked to each other. But now you have what's called the internet. And when you do that, when you do an arm wrestle to a yes, there's a whole subconscious element to this. I won't go into it, but your subconscious actually starts kicking in, and you get what's called buyer's remorse. But now, because of the internet, buyer's remorse can be done anonymously and spread like wildfire. When you arm wrestle somebody to a yes, the next thing you know, you have a Yelp review. And that can take down a business. So you have to spend the time getting to this point where you are developing that belief-based sales process. 2 more things, and then I'll take some questions, and I know we're already 40 minutes in. The next thing you have to do is come up with an actual growth plan. I have proven this in both of my books time and again. It's cited a number of times. The real inflation rate of this country over the past 100 years is over 10% a year, period. When you hear the CBO or your wonderful financial planner, and no offense to the financial planners, but when you hear them say, well, inflation's only 3%, there's a legally mandated additional 3, period. Whatever the CBO says, you have to add 3 to it. Above and beyond that, since 1995, we have changed how we calculate inflation a number of times. They've taken consumer price index, CPI, they've taken more of that out of the equation and added in other things like heavy equipment sales and aircraft sales. So even though in St. Charles here, in the past 5 years, the price of beef has gone up 75%, because the price of an airplane has gone down, we can say, oh, well, look, inflation's only 3%. So you have these elements of reality. And if you're over 40, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You're going, oh my gosh, things are getting more expensive. Yeah. But that means from your business perspective, you need 10% growth a year in order to have no growth. 10% growth is what you need to just maintain. And even if I'm totally wrong, you're like, Josh, you're smoking crack. Great. Are you getting at least the 3% growth every year to just keep up with what you thought inflation was? And the reality is most businesses are not, because most businesses don't have a growth plan. Their plan is go into work, do whatever product or service I do, go home, and, well, I hope we make more money. That's not a plan. When you were a kid in school, what was the easiest way for you to do a maze? Forward or backwards? Backwards. By far the easiest. To start to finish, get to the start. Well, your business plan has to be built on that same sort of premise. It really does. You have to say, where do I need to be 30 years from now? Or 20 years from now, whatever you think your exit looks like, which is another point, by the way. but where does this need to be? And then reverse engineer from there. The worst thing people can do is say, hey, I'm going to start a water business, buy a bunch of water bottles, fill them with water, get warehouse space on a 3-year contract, put the bottles in there, and then try to sell them. That's stupidity on a stick. What you need to be doing is saying, okay, if I'm going to retire with $5 million, I need to sell 20 million bottles of water. Start with that. Now, how do I do that in 10 years? Well, that's $2 million bottles a year on average. Okay, great. How would I sell 2 million bottles? Well, I'm going to need 13 locations. Awesome. Then your plan right off the bat is, I need 13 locations. And then you can say, based on your branding, your marketing, and advertising, how you need to price those, and how you reach those for them, and all these other pieces start to fall in place. What happens today in American business is it seems to be very choppy. We have this over here, and this over here, and this over here. And that just can't be sustainable, which is why 8 out of 10 businesses are failing. 6 out of 10 businesses need a secondary source of income in order to stay open. So you need some form of growth plan. And that growth plan has to include an exit plan. When you get on an airplane, what's the first thing they show you how to do? Get off the airplane. When you go to a movie, before the movie starts, what do they tell you? Look for the exits. Your first week of kindergarten school, what do they teach you? How to get out of the building. Everybody grab, the buddy in front of you and follow Miss Sally through the fire drill. Well, here you have a business, and most people don't know how to get out of it. I've spoken to billionaires who have said to me, Josh, I can't leave. I can't leave. Because the minute I announce I'm retiring, what happens to the stock price? No exit plan. I've talked to many small business owners who think, well, I'm just going to sell the business, and that's my retirement plan. Well, here's the sad news on that. According to a University of Wisconsin study, they found that in the next 15 years, 75% of all businesses are going to be up for sale, and half of them will never sell. Because Generation Z, even the tail of X and the millennials, they don't have the same entrepreneurial drive. So a lot of these mom and pop small businesses where their retirement plan was sell it to somebody else isn't happening. There's even an article about how there's going to be a multi-trillion-dollar bubble burst, and this was before Corona, in the private equity world, because in the private equity world where you get a fund and the purpose of the fund is to spend the money buying businesses, they're running into a huge problem because that tap is just run out. A lot of people thought, well, I'm going to hand it to our kids. There was a single business that we dealt with, and the idea was they hired me to help transition the business to kids. And the first thing I do is I take everybody in separate rooms, and I said, well, let's pretend mom and dad sell the business, and everybody gets $1 million severance. What do you do? And one kid was like, oh, I want to be a gunsmith, and the daughter was like, hey, I want to do a health and nutrition thing. And the other son, he just wanted to do volunteer work. And I got the family back together, and I said, there's a problem. I gave everybody $1 million, and none of them got back into this industry. Which means none of them really want to be. And it was this huge moment because they've been processed in the past 10 years on the fact, well, at some point the kid is going to take it. So you have to develop an exit plan. The last thing, you have to have a capital strategy plan. Excuse me. You have to have a capital strategy plan. Now, I will say, and I'll put a little asterisk on that. That's my asterisk symbol. I love banks, and I own stock, okay? Totally. So don't take this the wrong way. But what happens is most small businesses are unaware that they have options to them financially that they may not have been aware of when they were an employee. What most small businesses do is they take money in and then put that money in the bank. Don't do that. You don't know what capture them. It's gone. Now, let's say you take $1,000 in, you put $1,000 in the bank, and then you need $500 for water bottles or something. You have to deplete this resource in order to get the 500 water bottles. Well, that's how employees process their economy, and there's nothing wrong with that. But businesses have options. Businesses have options where you can take the $1,000 in, secure the capital, keep the $1,000, and then also get the 500 water bottles while retaining 100% of the $1,000. And the great part is once you secure the capital, it's not tied to the market. So we have a sister company to Purple Monkey Garage called Shift Capital. And none of our customers suffered economic loss in the past 3 weeks, not a penny. But most small business owners are completely unaware that they have those sort of options. So definitely come up with a capital strategy plan that allows you to capture the capital, use the capital, but at the same time gives you a back or a firewall, a backstop, if you will, so you don't have to worry about what the market's doing. Because right now, our phones are blowing up because so many small business owners were doing the take money in, put money in the bank, spend money in the bank in order to get this, and then try to make money with it. And that's just, it doesn't have to be that way. So anyway, that was kind of brief. My normal presentation is 16 hours. So when they said, hey, you got an hour, I was like, okay, I'll have to talk fast. So with that being said, we have about 10 minutes. Any questions that anybody has?
Yeah, you can either unmute yourself or type the question into the comments, whichever you prefer. Does anybody have any questions?
And while people are typing questions, if they have any, I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to be here today. And I really hope that if we can help you guys, we can. Unlike doing this for somebody else someplace, I live here. I live right here in St. Charles. So I want this community to continue to thrive. No question, but that was awesome info. Thank you, Shannon. I appreciate it. Erica says, can you give an example of marketing? Yes, I can. So we had a jewelry store as a client, and the jewelry store had 11 display cases in the jewelry store. And they have always done specials and, spring sales and spring galas and all that other sort of stuff, which no longer works because we're all oversaturated with that. And I said, okay, well, let's do something different. Let's have a different sort of spring gala. You have a POS system. Find me your 11 biggest buyers. All 11 happen to be women. And I said, okay, let's do this. Let's call them up and do this. Hi, this is Josh from Fill in the Blank Jewelers. We are having our spring gala this spring, and we want to do something different. As one of our best, most valued customers, we want you to be one of the designers. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to give you a display case all your own, and we want you to put in there anything you think is going to be hot this spring. What did she just do? She put in a box everything she likes. Then you call the other 10, same thing. And you say, now, in addition to letting you be the designers, on that night that this event happens, we're going to have red carpet. All of our staff is going to be in tuxedos and formal gowns. We have food and violins coming. It's going to be a real gala. But whichever display case sells the most is going to be a $500 gift certificate. Well, what did that just do? That just got all 11 of your special designers to call people and say, get to the jewelry store. That's something that the business couldn't have done. It would have been rude. But Jan is calling up her friend Sally saying, Sally, you're going to get to that jewelry store and you're going to buy something out of that case. So now your 11 biggest fish are now driving people to the event. We didn't stop there. We then said, now, as a thank you to all of you designers, we're going to open the store specially for you for 45 minutes and lock the door so you guys can get anything you want before the pariahs get in there and just clean the place out. Well, now what did you do? You just put your 11 biggest sharks over the past 40 years in a room all on one day with products they said they liked. And that event generates more revenue in one day than the last year did. That's an example of marketing. So you have to be able to do those sort of things. And they're so much fun, and it doesn't matter. You can do that sort of stuff for landscapers, for plumbing companies, it doesn't matter. But you have to start becoming that sort of marketing engine because your primary job is to be a marketing company. Now, because I'm in St. Charles, you guys have an asset. Us. We're here. This is what we do. We've helped our clients do $2.5 billion in revenue. So if you're thinking, man, we would love to do that, but we don't know how to think like that. We don't have the time for that. We do. That's what we do. So But great question, Erica.
Any more questions from anyone?
Well, good.
All right. It looks like you must have covered everything pretty thoroughly.
No, that was good.
All right. Well,
Wait, I have something. First, I was
Yes,
thinking, if, like, with everything going on, does it help if you like donate services, or, you know, there's businesses that are like making meals and donating them to hospitals, like that sort of like to get your name out in the public? That would be my first like question. And then what if there were businesses that could help, like, use their expertise to help other businesses that are struggling, kind of like you with the marketing? But is that all good stuff right now, or?
Oh my gosh, yes. So you actually bring up a couple good points. First, you can get your name out there in this time, you know, but you want to do it carefully. You don't want to look like you're playing upon what's happening, if you know what I mean.
Mhm.
So you have to be a little careful. We did something. We have a rum company that we own. We got it's called Kavana Rum. It's actually in Missouri, distributed by major brands, and you can all get it right now. So go and get some. But anyway, one of the things we did with our rum brand is we started hosting Saturday night online concerts, and we call them Kavana Cares. And we've had American Idol people on there. We had the winner from The Voice on our last one last Saturday, and the artists are doing them for free because right now they're not out there anymore either. So we're getting these great artists for free. We're getting our name out there. Kavana Cares, you know, it's our logo on the stage and all that sort of thing. But it's generating awareness to the point where International House of Pancakes called us on Friday and said, hey, we watched your concert and we want to talk to you about how we can partner up with you and do this. So there's ways to use the social media as long as you're really being social and not trying to advertise for sales. And that's the biggest point about social media. Social media is to be social, not to sell. That's where you build relationships, not make customers. But going on your other question, another thing that you can be doing right now that's really important is getting ready for massive growth and expansion if you're ready. So we've helped customers in the past 2 weeks structure deals where they're buying out their competitors for no money down. They're merging with other sort of businesses in their fields that wouldn't have happened a year ago. See, crisis breaks down pride. One of the biggest problems we have in small business is that we're all very, very prideful. If I go speak at a chamber event and I ask, 10 people, how's business going? 10 people are going to tell me great. Well, statistically, that's not true. But we tend to lie because if we don't lie and business is bad, well, then maybe you're less likely to actually become a customer. So we puff our chest and we lie, oh, business is great. Well, what Corona just did was bust the balloon of all these chest puffers. So if you're in a smart position right now, you can start gobbling up market share for no money, offering to merge and pay them part of what their customer base will do once they're out, or saying, hey, we'll just buy you out completely, or, there's so many things you can do, even at this point, because think about it. If you have, let's just use pest control companies, for example. If you have 5 pest control companies, well, that's 5 state licenses. And I don't know what it is in Missouri, but I have helped pest control companies in the past. And in some places, you're looking at $10,000 a year license, right? So if we say, hey, you know what? We're all suffering. Let's merge into one company. That just saved them $40,000 right now. It also saved them on 5 different insurance policies, 1. On 5 different receptionists, 1. On 5 different accountants, 1. So if you're smart right now, this is where you actually start taking over the monopoly board and growing tremendously. And now I never wish this has happened. I don't, hey, yay, Corona. No. But the reality is, because so many points or so many people are in this place of insolvency or panic, or they don't know what to do. If you're smart and you have a growth strategy, you can actually start gobbling up market share for free right now. Whereas 6 months ago, it would have cost you $1 million to merge with your competitor.
Okay.
I think there's a couple of questions in the comments, Josh, real quick. So we'll go ahead and take those and then we'll wrap it up. Somebody was
Sure.
asking about businesses outside of St. Charles. How can they get help?
That's
I
a
guess.
great question. So we have what are called certified business mechanics. So I don't like the business coach moniker. I don't like the consultant moniker. We designed Purple Monkey Garage for the sole purpose of being the only place in the world that we know of that you can take a business just like you would take a car. You don't take your car if it's making a weird noise to the automotive coach. You know, hey, just believe in yourself. No, you take it someplace and say, hey, I have a problem, fix it. So we created that sort of program. We had a guarantee where we would either fix your business or buy it up to $5 million. That became extremely popular. So here recently, we started creating certified business mechanics where we train them, and now we have them throughout the country. So there are options for people, no matter where you are, to actually get the same sort of help that I'm talking about and have somebody actually roll up their sleeves and help you fix your business, not just tell you what you should do.
And then it looks like Chris, second to last comment, wanted your thoughts on social media. He owns a coffee shop. And he said, you know, driving an image seems to connect. So he apparently uses Instagram a lot. So
Yeah.
Any thoughts on coffee shop and social media?
Absolutely. So again, social media is a great place to be social. So, you know, running a contest of who makes their own best, I don't know, that fancy top of the coffee, you know, thing, or whatever, having some sort of send us your picture of your morning coffee and letting people kind of latte art. Yeah. Have people kind of come in to your Instagram, not for you to sell them. This is the biggest point. I wish I could have a big exclamation point I would hold up. You're not trying to sell on social media. You're trying to connect on social media. So, you know, if it's them on their porch with their cup of coffee, great, send us the picture to enter to win. And then when you open back up, maybe you give them a free cup of coffee. But it gets that name list sort of generating, and it gets your awareness out there in a much better way. So, yeah.
Cool. It's kind of funny because I deal with the tourism department quite frequently, and they track a lot of the social media posts relating to businesses in St. Charles County, especially ones for tourism, restaurants, shops, things like that. And they said one of the most popular posted photos are pictures of latte art. So that's a huge thing, I guess, that people like to take is a picture of their cup of coffee. So one last thought, and I know I've had a conversation with our local economic developer on what we think will happen with the business world, but somebody was asking, what's a percentage of businesses do you think will close over as a result of the COVID-19?
Oh my gosh. I think that's a hard question because we don't really know when we're going to get out of this. If we had a set date, if they were like, yep, May 1st, that's it, you know, it would be easier to predict. But because this is a fluid situation, I think that question's hard to answer. I will say, though, that we're going to see more economic damage than I think people realize. So far, it's still been short enough where we're not feeling too much pain. We've had 3.5 million unemployment last week, which is a record. That hurts. We're seeing the contraction of corporate leases, so that hurts. But we're still not really feeling it. We've taken 2-week vacations in the past. I think 2 more weeks from now, 5 weeks from now, you're going to start seeing businesses that even if they get the stimulus will not be able to recover because it's more than just the money. And that's the biggest point to this. It's more than just money. You're going to have a changing customer base from this point forward for at least 2 generations. And if you don't adapt now, you'll die.
Well, it's interesting because even from a chamber point of view, doing online meetings, I think will actually change even the way we do some things going forward. People will get used to doing the online meetings and they're like, oh, this has saved us a lot of time by doing a quick conference call rather than meeting in person. So I think even from a business perspective, from our perspective, after a month of this or whatever, we'll actually start to see how we conduct some of our business as a chamber. And I expect it will probably see a certain portion of that start to go online as well. So anyway,
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Josh. We certainly appreciate your input and your thoughts. And I quickly wanted to share one last screen here. I know you're going to be speaking with us again, probably going a little bit more depth on the difference between marketing and advertising. So we got you scheduled for April the 16th with a little bit more time to touch on some things. So right now. I guess that will be online as well. Hopefully we can figure out how, we were working with Facebook Live yesterday. We tested it out and it worked fine, but for whatever reason it didn't work today. But I did record this presentation, and we'll make sure we get it uploaded to YouTube and share that out as well. So anyway, thank you guys for your time. Thank you, Josh, for your time. Thank you to Villages of St.
Absolutely.
Peter's Memory Care for their sponsorship. And we look forward to having you guys again, maybe on April the 16th from 3 to 5. Thanks, Josh.
Bye, everybody. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Hi, everyone.
Bye.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Thanks.